Driver's license testers, what's the worst thing a kid has done without batting an eye while taking the driving test? Not a tester, but there was a license center next to the sporting goods store I worked at. A lot of people would come there and practice before their test out front in the straight on parking spots. A young lady, who only had her permit, managed to mix up the gas and brake and drove right through the front of the license center. I was told later that she was even more upset when they wouldn't let her reschedule her test for the following day, since they cancelled her test she was pulling in to take when she wrecked the whole front of the building. It wasn't long after that they installed a bunch of bollards in front to protect the building. I was amazed at how marked up they had gotten in the first few months. What do you mean I can't reschedule my test? Lady, you literally rammed a car into our office. I want to speak to your manager. I'm the manager. Answered his phone. Yellow. Lolio, I'm taking my driving test. This nerd doesn't even know how high I am. Feo haha verbally spells it out. My driver's ed teacher said that one kid reclined his seat all the way back, put one foot on the gas and the other on the brake, and grabbed the top of the wheel with one hand, and said let's go. Future Fast and Furious driver right there. Yeah, only way the story would have been better was if he told the instructor that he lives his life a quarter mile at a time. Vin has one of my 2 favorite stupid lines ever in that movie. It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Dude, you are running quarter mile races. If someone won by a mile, that would matter. LMAO, I have been known to be pedantic about movies, but never even realized that you literally can't win by a mile when your race is 1/4 of a mile. Nice. My best friend's son just failed because he went the wrong way down a busy 4-lane road. Luckily, they made it safely into a parking lot and the testing administrator drove them back. Good thing no one got hurt. Yeah, they cold gotten killed, or worse, expelled. Don't say things like that here. People might think you're up to something. He needs to sort out his priorities. I wish I could upvote you more. I wish I could downvote you more. Not a tester, but I heard about a girl in driver's ed who was driving on the interstate with a teacher and 3 other students. The teacher commented that they missed the exit, but they would just get off on the next one. I'm not sure what the girl's thought process was, but this girl pulled into the grass and tried to go against the traffic to go back to their missed exit. The teacher had to use her brake on the passenger side while the 3 other students screamed bloody murder. One of my kids has his driver's test this coming Wednesday, so I've been taking him out driving a bit. And his sister was learning a few years ago. I told them both about what to do it. You miss your turn, you don't stop, you don't swerve. There will be a way to come back. You look for the first easy and legal stop, and you pull off, and figure it out. Or, you take the next exit, or turn at the next street, even if it's a long ways. That was actually my biggest fear for them, that they'd do something sudden like this. When I went to take mine, the tester waited till I was at an intersection, and then yelled turn left. She scared me, so I did and failed lol. When I went back to try again, she was just ripping into this girl and her mom in the parking lot. I was like, at least I'll get a different tester cause she's clearly busy lol. During my test, there was a stop sign. Before entering the course, the instructor just told me to drive forward and looked at me. Needless to say, I stopped at the sign like both ways before entering. I feel like it was a trick to see who would not stop. I wonder how many people fail because they just drove into the course without stopping. Yeah, afterwards I was like, maybe that was a test to see how I do under pressure. Not good though apparently lol. I'm not a tester, but I asked my tester during my full license test what was the worst thing someone had done. Apparently there was an older gentleman who drove through 3 stop signs before the tester told him to pull over. The gentleman explained that he didn't want the license, but his family was pressuring him, so ran the signs on purpose to fail. Made sure no cars were coming first. Come on grandpa, yeah, gotta get your license renewed. No, I don't think I will. Malicious Compliance. You're gonna make me do it? Watch me fail, safely. While I was waiting for my turn to do my 450 test, I watched a guy in a semi back into a light pole, and instead of seeing what, he gently backed into, gassed it, and knocked it over. Needless to say, I didn't get to take my test for an hour or so while they cleaned it up. Did you pass after all that mess was over with? My instructor took out the only light pole on the backing up section of the 450 course. Another student got the trailer stuck on the fire hydrant on the side of the course, and we had to wait for a wrecker to come out before anyone else could test. And yes, I passed on my first try even after another instructor said to me, "You've only been on the road once before. Had a good luck." It was not a very good training school. My best friend was coming to a 4-way stop sign in our small rural town. The tester said to go straight, so she did, without stopping at the sign. Just drove right through without batting an eye. He basically told her, "Well, you failed. If you want to just drive back." That's rough, but at least it wasn't in downtown big city USA. I had an ex who was oblivious to stop signs. It was terrifying being the passenger when he was driving. The kids make minor mistakes, and yes, some do make scary mistakes. However, it's the adults that scare me most, especially the seniors who are up for re-exam. Probably the worst test I've ever been on was this man in his 90s. I instructed him to turn onto a street when it is safe to do so, and he turned, narrowly missing a pedestrian. Not only that, but he was driving on the wrong side of the road. He came head to head with another car who pulled over to let him go. He was laughing about it because he was under the impression that it was a one-way road. When I got back to the office with him, I cut the test short and got him back in the quickest and safest way possible. He was astounded when I told him it was not a one-way street. Me, "Did you see any one-way signs?" Him, "No, but I assumed you were going to take me on one." Edited for clarity. Sorry. Edit. As someone who is minimally disabled due to an elderly man hitting me on my motorcycle, I thank you for retesting the elderly and encourage more of it. Many thanks to the lives you save. I wish we would do more of it, honestly. But we have very specific protocols for re-exams. If we required all people over the age of, insert age here, to retest, we could be opening ourselves up to accusations of age discrimination. I don't see why they can't make a law out of it though. If teenagers under 15 in most areas aren't allowed to drive, and there's no age discrimination there, the case could be argued for the elderly too. A lot of older people lose their shit when you talk about taking away licenses. They're also very vocal, and older people tend to make up local government. It's common sense, but sadly it makes a lot of people very upset, so politicians turn a blind eye to the blatant risk to the public. Car accident was an automatic fail on my test, even if it wasn't your fault. It didn't happen to anyone I know, but it's still a checkbox you don't want. Edit. Didn't that sucks, but it would impede your ability to finish the test possibly. It shouldn't be a fail, at least just to do over. I believe it's a fail and come back, because most people get anxious after accidents, especially when you are just taking the test. I failed my first test because I knocked over the pole in 90 degrees back in. Second test I failed because some idiot Harley man ran a stop sign in front of me. I went forward instead of in reverse when the tester was standing in front of me on the curb. I failed. VROOM no, I think you are going to pass me. When I was sitting my test, I asked the tester how many tests he did in a normal day. His answer was 10. Not all that surprising, until he followed it up with 10 and 8 will fail before making it out of the car park. I asked him to elaborate, and apparently the vast majority of test sitters will fail for administrative reasons, like arriving late to the test, not bringing their existing learner's licenses, or having a vehicle that wasn't road legal. The latter was more common than it sounds. When all lights/turn signals/horn etc are tested in the car park before the test itself begins. Fail any of the above, and you've wasted your $75 and never even got into gear. My grandfather used to be a tester. He had one girl forget which way to turn the steering wheel, and they ended up in a ditch. Please tell me it was that they turned the wrong way when they were going in reverse. Opposite kind of story here. When I was taking driver's ed, I was in a car that had the brake on the passenger side for the instructor to use just in case. Going 35 down fairly busy street, my car all of a sudden comes to a complete stop. In horror I look over at my instructor, who is sound asleep with his foot on the brake. I just sat there dumbfounded. After a couple people honked, real quickly shook himself awake, mumbled a quick accelerate and sat up adjusting his glasses. So that was fun. Edit yes I did pass. Guy was in his 70s and just didn't care about anything. Good thing he didn't also have a throttle control. One of my classmates in HS failed his driver's test 6 times. During one test, he hit a pedestrian. Woo boy, the fines must have been big to even try 6 times, not even counting hitting a pedestrian. My dad was friends with a guy who worked for the registry giving the road test. His best story was of a kid who took his test while it was raining. He started driving without the windshield wipers on. The guy figured he was nervous so tried to give him a break saying, "It's raining pretty hard, huh?" The kid was white knuckled on the steering wheel and just said, "Yeah." Again trying to give the kid a break he said, "Don't you think you should do something about that?" The kid said, "Yeah." Apparently he didn't know where the wiper controls were, so he rolled down the driver's side window and stuck his head out. At that point he stopped the test and failed him. AHH, the old Ace Ventura. Took a test with a girl who drove on the wrong side of the road and took a left turn into oncoming traffic all in the same drive. It was through my school and she was banned from taking it through the school because of that. How does that happen? Like, how do you get your mandatory hours in with a practice permit, yet drive on the wrong side of the road? In my local area, a guy in his mid-20s failed the test for some reason. At this point in time the results of the test were shared in the car. After being told he failed, he proceeded to get out of the car and grab an axe out of the trunk. I don't know any more details beyond that, but apparently it is why the results are shared inside the licensing building rather than in the car. Typically yes. My tester told me as I was returning the car, "I'm not supposed to give you results, but you barely passed, and I want you to promise you'll practice a little more before going out on your own." Okay, 3 stories. My ex drove a Gia Tracker, tiny car. She pulled right into the parallel parking area and fit in so unbelievably easy. The tester made her do it properly. A girl in my driver's ed failed her test when she went to DMV because she turned into oncoming traffic. Not only was there a grass median, there was some of those skinny red/white poles for about 10 feet followed by a guardrail. Each side of the median was 3 lanes. There really was no way to miss it, but she did. On a lighter note, I did the backing up 100 feet. When the tester told me when, I stopped and, before I put it into park, he asked me a few verbal questions, then proceeded to give me directions to leave the area and back to the parking lot where the parallel parking test would be done. Never put the car in drive, pressed the gas, and car went flying in reverse for about 20 feet. He apologized and said, "My fault for distracting you. As far as I'm concerned, that never happened." He apologized and said, "My fault for distracting you. As far as I'm concerned, that never happened. Passengers are distracting all the time. I thought it was gonna be a shit test." Wasn't a kid, my 80-year-old great aunt. The tester kept telling her to speed up. After a few times she said she can't see the speedometer, so she doesn't know how fast she is going. He made her pull over, and she did not receive a renewal, thank God. Edit, LPT, drive extra careful around pharmacies. It's usually crowded with old people. It's one of the few places they need to drive to. Was taking my driver's test as a teen. Got to the point of doing the vision test. Was next to an old woman who was doing the same. She missed a bunch and the tester's response was, "Close enough." I was thinking, haha, what? My dad did testing for a few years and he once had a girl stop on railroad tracks. There was a train coming, slowly, but still it takes them a long time to stop, and it blasted the horn right into the car, passenger side, with the window open. This just made her freeze up even more. He had to reach his foot over to her side to hit the accelerator. Edit to at, in Canada you can do your driver's test in any car you choose because, in theory, you should be good enough at driving to not need an instructional car. So this car did not have dual pedals. Why in the ever-living world would she stop on tracks?